90 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. Tonight on this show we've got Stephen Pound, former Labour MP. We've also got writer and author Emma Wolfe, former RAF pilot Sean Bell, and for the first time on the show we've got Shabnam Chowdhury, a former top cop. But first, let's go to the news.
Very good evening. The headlines at 7 o'clock. Former Metropolitan Police Commissioner Lord Ian Blair has died at the age of 72. The crossbench peer and senior police officer led the UK's largest force between 2005 and 2008. Lord Blair was appointed Commissioner in 2005, just months before the deadly 7/7 suicide bomb attacks that killed 52 people on London's transport network. Stepping down 3 years later, he called it the proudest task of my life to lead the men and women of the Metropolitan Police. The Home Secretary says Britain's new migrant returns deal with France is robust and ready to face down any legal challenge. Sir Keir Starmer struck a one-in, one-out agreement with President Macron to stop the small boats, though it still needs the green light from Brussels. France's leader has blamed Brexit for fuelling the crisis, but the UK insists the new plan will work, with migrants arriving illegally set to be detained upon arrival. Border Force and the RNLI were back in the Channel this morning as the first boatload reached Dover. Looking stateside, US President Donald Trump has arrived in Texas to visit the area that was hit by a deadly flood. President Trump's expected to meet the victims' families and first responders today. Torrential rains last week sent surging down the Guadalupe River killed dozens. Thousands of responders have spent days combing debris, but no one has been found alive since the day of the flood. And amber heat alerts are in force across much of England as the third summer heatwave pushes temperatures above 34 degrees. Hosepipe bans are now in place in Yorkshire and Sussex, with health chiefs warning of risks to the elderly and vulnerable. But at London Zoo, penguin chicks have found their own way to cool off, taking their first dip in the main pool as mercury hit 31 degrees in Regent's Park. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. I'm Lee Anderson, the Reform UK Member of Parliament for Ashfield. On tonight's show, she's back, the very lovely Emma Wolfe, writer, broadcaster, journalist, political commentator. Thanks for coming back, Emma. And our left in the corner tonight is old age pensioner Stephen Pound. Thanks for coming back on the show, Stephen, for about the 20th time. Hello, Amir.
Evening
all. Evening, Stephen Pound. Look, this week we've had the visit of President Macron he's been into Westminster, actually. He's been into the palace where he held court there. But looking at it, I'm getting a lot of people contacting me, guys, and saying he looks like, Starmer looks like the whipping boy of Macron. He's snivelling around him. He's almost like a young boy looking up to him as some sort of political hero. What's going on? Isn't it time he got off his knees and stuck up to this man?
And what was the point of Brexit? Weren't we going to take back control? We weren't going to be in hock to the EU. So now we've agreed, I think we're going to hand over another 400 million. We've already spent well over £500 million in the past 3 years. And for what? France have done nothing. France have done... Oh, the other day, they took a penknife to a couple of dinghies.
You say for nothing, Emma. They've spent that money on a Stanley knife.
Great, yeah, absolutely. They did destroy that one boat, but they said they weren't going to do it again. That was just an example of something or other. Do you know what I would do? I would cancel those payments to France until we start to see some action, and I would use a few quid to get a private border security force who would actually do the job. Yeah.
Well, let's go to our pensioner. Sorry, our left in the corner. Stephen, you was a seafaring man back in the day. Yeah. Are we being taken for mugs?
No, of course. Look, nobody can really look up to President Macron, to be honest, because he's shorter than I am. But, I mean, the reality is you can actually catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. If we're going to actually do anything about this crisis, and I have to say, it did my heart good to see Le Plod heading out into the water, getting their booties wet and stabbing that boat. Brilliant. Let's have some more of that.
Isn't it funny, though, that the BBC TV cameras just happened to be there at the same time?
Well, I think they're there all the time, mate. I mean, I'm constantly being seen all this stuff about the jungle. But the French now have this thing called the Compagnie de Marche, which is actually a police force specifically to go out 30 metres. Look, you get more done by working with people. You can talk about paying money for private security. That's for the birds. You can have the Wagner group out there. You couldn't actually stop people once they're 30 metres off the French coast.
Why?
Sorry, it's the law of the sea.
Come on, Stephen. Let's stop this nonsense right now about you can't go out 30 metres. Look, we know, and I put this to the security minister just this week in Parliament, there are terrorists and potential terrorists, rapists, murderers, criminals coming over these boats. Isn't it time we put our own country first and stop these people even entering our country?
Lee, what do you actually mean by that? Look, you and I would agree. We agree that there are some complete wrong-uns have come over there. All the more reason for processing them, fingerprinting them, ID carding them, and banging them back if they are wrong.
What a load of rubbish,
the idea that we can actually put a Mexican wall across the channel is for the birds. It's rubbish. The Tories would have done it. You couldn't do it. Nobody can do it.
We can do it.
You have to work with the other countries.
Of course we can, and we need to stop being a soft touch. We need to stop being so welcoming and making it so easy. As for this thing we've been hearing all week, one in, one out, we don't want one in, one out. What don't they get? We want none in and 44,000 out. Well, there are legal... No, look.
And the rest?
Britain, and the rest. But I'm talking about the year since Starmer has been in power. We're topping 44,000 illegal entrants. There are legal ways to enter our country. Britain is a very welcoming country. We've always helped and given sanctuary to those who are fleeing war, persecution. We can't do that if we are being overrun by people entering illegally. That is not the way to do it.
Stephen, why are we putting these people, these illegal migrants, into hotels?
Well, we're not putting all of them in hotels. A fair few of them in places like Marston, in sort of like reception centres. But look, the previous government tried to bite the bullet on this. Do you remember the Bibby Stockholm? You know, the Hulk moored off Portland Bill. There was an outcry. Somebody killed themselves. The people were demonstrating on the street. We've got to do something. We've got to go back from the step. Instead of actually worrying about where they're going to stay for the next 5 years and get permanent citizenship, we've got to sort them out on day one.
Yeah, but Macron...
If necessary, on Dover Beach.
Listen...
What's wrong with that?
Listen, Macron, for all his faults... He actually said we're making it far too comfortable for illegal migrants.
Yeah, but as for Macron, he's right. He's right. It is very easy. I mean, I live in central London. What about the encampments right near us, opposite University College London Hospital, which is a leading European hospital, a centre of medical excellence? There are huge tent encampments. The filth, the dirt, the unsanitary nature of these encampments springing up all over cities and towns across the UK. But as for Macron, he's right. But for him having the cheek to blame us for the migrant problem, where are they coming from, mate? Where are they crossing from?
They're coming from France. I mean, France historically have not been very good, have they, Stephen, at defending their borders. They've got open borders, and they've opened their borders now to the UK as a pathway.
They've got land guiding them out.
Yeah.
They're guiding them out into the channel. Yeah. Off you go. Yeah. Bon voyage.
And every time the TV cameras turn up, they get a Stanley knife at $5 worth and just slash it.
Well, we've only got one land border with the EU. You know, they've got about 5. But look, yeah, the reality of the situation. If you go to France, you go to Paris, and you know, I don't know what your views are about visiting Le Continent, but they've got massive, great encampments all over. They go by the garden.
Whatever do you mean, Stephen?
You can hardly.
Whatever do you mean about me visiting the continent?
Yeah, well, I don't know, because occasionally you have been slightly dismissive of our French brothers and sisters.
I'm a sophisticated, well-known traveller.
Indeed, OK.
But what's that got to do with it, that they've got this same encampment problem in Paris?
The point I'm making is
it's a race to the bottom again, Emma.
It's a problem across Europe.
We don't want to, Stephen.
No. One of the reasons why France has the same interests is the French do not want the encampments in Paris. What they want to do is to push the whole thing back. Now, if there's this thing called the Med 5, I don't know if you know, the 5 Mediterranean countries. You know,
I think it's the Mad 5 that you're talking about, well, not the Med 5, the Mad 5.
Well, OK, but the Med 5, there's 5 countries. They're objecting like mad to what France and the UK are doing, because they say we're going to push people back to Greece and to Cyprus and to Malta, where they will then claim asylum. Well, fair play. If people come there, then they'll have to defend their border. We've got to actually put the whole thing into reverse. At the moment, it's all moving in one direction. We've got to move it back. And if it goes back to the Turkish-Greek border...
moving in one direction, which is our
a lot of arm flapping there from Stephen Powell.
And the point is, Stephen, we can't help people who genuinely need our help when we're absolutely overrun by people who are just coming as economic migrants.
Well, that's the one in, one out.
Coming for a better life.
Stephen, don't start with that nonsense.
One in, one
out. We want 0 in, the lot out.
Well, no, hang on a sec. You don't disagree with Emma so much. I think she's actually made a good point there. Yeah, the idea about helping the people we do want to help. The thing about the one in, the idea is people who've actually got links with this country, they've got skills, they've got medical skills, engineering skills, that we should actually welcome the people. I'm entirely with Emma on that. But it's those people we should be, not after single scroats from the South Balkans who come over here and rip Rolexes off people's wrists. I've got no time for them. I'll put them in a boot of my
No time for them. They watch these.
Honestly, Stephen, I don't know when the last time you were in contact with the education system.
Or the real world.
Or
the real
world in this country. I know you don't have young kids, but to try and bring up children in this country at the moment, you know, public services are absolutely on their knees. And as for Starmer's government, they can't even sort out the NHS and the constantly striking doctors.
Well, indeed, Stephen.
Well, we're not giving in to the striking doctors. I mean, come on, the doctors...
Oh, great. So we'll just face the strikes for the next 6 months.
I'm sorry. I was going to say I'd put money on that. But look, the reality is, waiting this to come down, we're actually making some improvements.
That's rubbish.
That is not true.
Wes Streeting is talking more sense than any health secretary I've heard of.
Absolute
last 20 years.
Well, when he came in, he gave them 22% within weeks. So now they've got him over a barrel. That's sensible.
They're rubbing their hands together, Stephen.
That's sensible. I don't know what you mean.
No, come on. I think public sympathy has actually drained well away. You know, they've had something like 29% pay rise. What's all that about? Come on. What about the nurses? What about the police officers? What about the armed forces? What about giving them some money?
I agree with that. I agree with that,
Absolutely. But what about regular working people who are every single day not claiming benefits, just getting up, getting the kids to school and going to work?
And meanwhile, I mean, let's not forget, Emma, that these huge pay rises need paying for. At the same time, the Labour Party are driving the wealth creators, the entrepreneurs, the super wealthy out of this country.
Driving them away, and they don't have money for pensioners, for kids, for people who are sick and need help in the NHS. No money for that, but we do have money for Ukraine, for sending more money to France, for foreign aid. We have money when we want it.
GB Energy.
GB Energy, which is what exactly? Has anyone...
Foreign climate aid, 12 billion quid.
I really do despair. I mean, there is money when they want it. There is money to send abroad. People all over this country are saying, but what about our own? What about British people? That's not racist.
£500 million for African farmers.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, we're fleecing our own farmers.
These projects all over. And what's wrong with growing your own? What's wrong with supporting the farming industry and not hitting them with inheritance tax and actually supporting the cultivation of our green and pleasant land?
Stephen's looking confused now, but he wants to come back on that, don't you, Stephen?
I bet, Stephen, you support the farmers. Come on.
I do not support the barley barons who own thousands and thousands of acres who've been milking the system. I support people like Jeremy Clarkson.
Most farmers are
Jeremy Clarkson said we should be going after those people who are milking the system. He actually said he bought Diddley Scott Farm to avoid paying tax, inheritance tax. Come on, it's one of the biggest scams. The Tories and the Daily Telegraph in the last government said we should actually reform the scam of giving farmers not just free petrol, free diesel, but also 50% of inheritance tax when the rest of us pay 100%.
He doesn't get that very often. you need to come back on that.
That is so wrong to characterise farmers.
It was a Tory policy.
As some kind of financial scammers. The majority of farmers in this country are doing such a tough job. Would you want to be getting up at 3, 4 in the morning every day, winter and summer, and trying to make a living from the land when the huge amount of imports coming into this country much cheaper, which the government are encouraging?
So why do we buy them? Why on earth do we stop buying avocados from Peru? Why don't we actually start buying local produce? I mean, I can grow so much on my allotment. I would actually rather see more people growing local products.
Again, here we go.
Why don't we have some pride in our country? Never mind talking about things. We actually talk about buying British.
Steve,
it's an old slogan, but what's wrong with that, Lee?
Absolutely. Let's buy British. Let's support our British farming industry. Don't bring in avocados from Peru. People's tastes have changed. Some people like to pay £5 for a foreign avocado. That's irrelevant. You can't. A farmer down in farmer down in Norfolk can't grow avocados.
There you go.
You can in a polyfarm, actually.
You can't grow avocados on Stephen Pound's allotment. That's breaking news, by the way. Look, coming up next, we've got Real World, Real People with Sean Bell. He's a former RAF pilot. Do not go away.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
An amber heat alert remains in place across all of England until Monday morning.
Well, joining us now, GB News reporter Jack Carson. Jack Carson, where are you? Tell us. Oh, he's rowing. Jack Carson, what a go on?
Good morning. Good morning. Well, we're in the beautiful Stratford-upon-Avon, so we were on the big wheel earlier on, and one of the other beautiful things you can do is also row on the river as well. This is the Avon Boating Club. This has been going since the 1800s, 1898 it started. This boat over here on the right, that was bought brand new all the way back in the day, so it's historic here, and a lot of these boats are from the likes of the 1930s as well, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And it's this beautiful sunny weather. Here we are on the river. I've never rowed in my life before, but I think I've got the hang of it okay. But let's have a listen to a few of the people we've spoken to this morning about how they're enjoying the weather today.
Yesterday I did start to think, right, I'm getting a bit sweaty and hot now, so yeah, but it's nice, isn't it? As long as there's a breeze, it's not too bad.
Can't beat it. Literally the best thing ever. Yay!
They make the most of it because the winter was terrible this year with all the rain, so this is payback.
It makes us feel better, doesn't it? Bit of sun on our bones. It really does.
Enjoying the weather, Will? Nice? Sunny? Chatty? Well, there you go. That's what some people have been saying to us this morning about how they're enjoying the weather. I think I've got myself into a bit of a pickle. Hopefully we're not going to capsize. I think other people might be a bit more experienced in the rowing.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Lee Anderson's Real World. It's time to talk to a real person from the real world. I've got Sean Bell, former RAF, I can't say RAF, can I?
No, RAF is riff-raff.
Former RAF pilot. Now, which planes did you fly?
Flew the Harrier jump jet. You do a load of different jets through training, but yeah, I spent most of my formative years flying on the Harrier out of Germany, but also off Her Majesty's carriers.
So you've done, Sean, what most boys growing up want to do. I can remember when I was at school in the 70s and 80s, every young lad wanted to be a pilot in the Air Force and be a fighter pilot, not just a bomber pilot or a reconnaissance plane. They wanted to be a fighter pilot, single seat, shooting the enemy. And you've actually done that. You've lived the dream.
Yeah, it's a strange world, though. I mean, I was 16, 17. I'd never really thought about flying career, but I was very fortunate. I got a special flying award, went off and got my private pilot's licence before I could drive. So I got my licence. My mother had to drive me to the airport, and I took her flying. And I got that bug. Got sponsored through university, and then popped out, went through flying training, and loved it. And
so I've got a friend at the moment who's thinking about sending her son to the Air Training Corps. I think he's 11 or 12 or something like that. What sort of advice would you give to that young man?
I'd say go for it. The one thing I would reflect on my military time is that when I left after nearly 30 years in the military, I went and worked a proper job. And I realised I hadn't done a day's work in my life in the military. It had been a vocation. Yeah. It had been genuinely something I'd enjoyed doing. And it was the people, it was the life, it was the jet. You know, I flew that Harrier jet for most of my military career, and I never tamed it. It always surprised you. It always bit. Yeah. And that was a challenge that I loved, and you met some amazingly inspirational people, and that's something I really miss today.
So you've seen active service as well, haven't you? You've been to places like Iraq?
Yeah, well, I went to Sarajevo was my first tour when I was shot at a few times. That was interesting, but it was a great wake-up call.
How does that feel, being shot at?
Well, you did a caisson approach in a Hercules to land in there, put in an armoured personnel carrier to get to the United Nations. But out of a welcoming committee, the welcoming committee would shoot the armoured personnel carrier because they knew they weren't going to hurt you. I didn't know that. I'd just arrived, and I'm thinking, what's going on? And then, of course, we went to, you might remember Sniper Alley in Sarajevo. It was a place... Anyway, when I arrived, I was scared witless, got my hat on, my body armour, and my boss said, right, you got your running kit? Yes. Put it on. We're going for a run around the middle of Sarajevo. What?
Yeah.
And actually what it was, A, to show you there were lots of safe areas, but also just to get rid of that stigma. And actually it was a really good welcome because I spent a lot of my time on operations throughout that time, culminating in 3 tours, 2 years of my life in Afghanistan.
So there must have been some really hairy moments for you flying these jets, and maybe losing friends as well along the way.
Back in the day, I mean, it's an alarming statistic now, but we used to have 3 major accidents in the Harrier Force each year, and 1 person would die, and we only had about 60+ pilots.
Why was that?
Because at the time it was Cold War. At the time we were ready to fight straight away on the day. And a good example of that, my first trip in Germany, the weather was rubbish. The minimum visibility for flying around at low level is about 5.5 kilometres. It was a third of that. So you're whistling around at hundreds of miles an hour. You can barely see your hands in front of your face. There's jets whistling around everywhere. And I'm going, I land, and they say, any safety points? And I went, that visibility wasn't good. And the whole room rounded on me. Look, Johnny Wet Pants, we're ready for war now. We're not going to not go to war because the weather isn't very good.
Well, talking about war, Sean, if you go back 80 years, what them young lads had to go through, from going from the airfields in Lincolnshire and Suffolk and that sort of area, young lads 18, 19, 20-year-old, they were going like 8 hours, I think it was, to Germany and back, in thick smoke, in fog. They hadn't got the equipment that you've got, so surely when you look back at those young lads doing what they did back in the day, you think, my goodness, how did they do that?
Well, it's not just that. It's also many of them never spoke about it when they came back, and many of them went to their graves having never shared it. Now, there are some veterans. I do fair bit of work, and I'm an ambassador for the Royal Air Force Association. Part of that is looking after veterans. And one guy is Flight Lieutenant Colin Bell, Distinguished Flying Cross. You know, he flew Mosquitoes in the war. He flew 50 missions over Germany. I think it was 17 or 18 over Berlin. And you listen to his stories. Now, most of the people wouldn't share them, but they're real bravery. They lost a lot of people.
They did. And I've been in, is it the Petwood Hotel?
Petwood Hotel.
Petwood Hotel, that's it.
Coningsby.
Yeah, where the bar, Bomber Command bar. It's magnificent going in there.
It is. Unfortunately, we're losing the veterans in the first hand. So Colin Bell, he's 104 years old now. You still find him in the Royal Air Force Club on both feet, holding his own. He's an absolute inspiration, but there's not many of those left.
Fantastic men, and there were fantastic men that went in these, not just the fighter planes, but I think the Bomber Command. I mean, the statistics of deaths, of lost, I think it was 1 in 3 at one stage. And I know my grandma was in the Land Army in Suffolk during the war, and she said when they went to bed at night time, they could count the planes going out. when they woke up in the morning, they could count them coming back, and there weren't many come back.
Well, the trouble is, it's worth remembering that we used to do 1,000 bomber raids at times with Lancasters, each of those carrying 20 1,000-pound bombs.
Yeah.
But the reason we had to fly so many was, what's the average miss distance? How close did the average bomb get to its target? 4 miles away. So we had to drop tens of thousands of bombs to stand any chance. So we caused carnage on the ground. People often say we've got no squadrons left. You go, no, but one jet today with 3 precision bombs, each of those can hit within inches.
But 80 years ago, Sean, we had the bravest and the best in our aircraft. But these days, in the quest for diversity, I don't think we're doing that.
Well, you're touching on a subject that's a bit close to my heart. I think, because there's two sides to this. I don't think the Air Force handled this diversity thing well as well. There's a big but here, though. I'm old enough that I was a flying instructor for a few years, in the early days when we didn't have female pilots in the Air Force. They decided we were going to have them. The first tranche of ladies came through, and none of them made it through the flying training course. We were pulled in to our boss's office and said, we've got to get some of them through. Now, bear with me. Part of that was because they went, in world, you've got to have role models. People have got to see themselves in those cockpits, and at the moment, they're not. So against our better judgment, a few more got through. The standard was quickly reset. Now, later in my time, I was a squadron commander of a Harrier squadron, frontline squadron. We had 2 female pilots. They were absolutely awesome. There is no question in my mind that those were just as good as their male counterparts, if not better. But at least now there were role models in the service, and females could see the route to them. Translate that to the current day. You know, our services should reflect society that they protect.
Yes.
And at the moment, it's male, pale and stale, and we do need to find ways to get people in. And I do think it was handled badly, but it's not just in the military. Colleagues in the city are also trying to get...
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, I might push back a little bit on that one. I've got friends who've served in the army as well, on the front line. We've been in the Marines and been in Special Forces and stuff like that. And I think it was last year, might have been last year, they're actually lowering the standard of fitness to pass from the exams to getting these elite forces. I think it's wrong, Sean. I think it's absolutely wrong.
Well, that's a slightly separate thing. I do agree that society seems to do less and less sport. I was listening to the radio the other day. It's less sport, and therefore, do you create a standard for entry around fitness, or do you say, when we've got you in, we will get you fit?
Yeah.
Now, the danger is we're 2 old men swinging a lantern here, going back in my day. But the reality is...
But isn't it true, Sean, that, you know, to be an infantryman or a fighter pilot, the best people, and this is not me being sexist or whatever, is young men, normally daft lads in the infantry, who's got a bit about them, the adventurous, the risk takers, they like a bit of danger, and that's why they choose them.
Right, the danger is we've got a very broad brush here. I've no doubt that there are only... the military will appeal to young men, particularly from a certain background. In the pilot community, yes, it will appeal, I suspect, to more men than it is women. One of the tragedies on the pilot side is we spend so much money training these people. It's literally tens of millions. And of course, if people decide to start families, you can't force them to get back in the cockpit again. So we have to be a little bit careful here. But I would absolutely push back on the fact that as a military guy, I've lost several colleagues in war. You know, I'm the first person to push back at you and say it's not about political correctness. I need the best people around me. The military has to be the best of the best. My pushback is I want it to be the best of the best, and if that means I need different colours, different backgrounds, different sexes in the military, then bring it on.
Sean, that's great. Coming up next, we've got right versus left.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to be a very warm night out there. Clear skies for most, but temperatures in many places not dropping below the high teens or even low 20s. And with high pressure in charge, we're going to see plenty of sunshine as we start the weekend and even hotter weather to come. Now, we do have an area of low cloud and mist around the North Sea. That's going to just creep inland in some parts of eastern Scotland and eastern England overnight. Otherwise, it's clear skies and temperatures not falling far. 17, 18 Celsius typically, but in some spots, particularly, say, western Scotland, temperatures won't fall below 20 Celsius. So an uncomfortable night for sleeping. And a misty start to the day for eastern parts of Scotland with some low cloud around first thing. But elsewhere across Scotland, it's sunshine from the word go, temperatures rising quickly through the morning. Likewise for Northern Ireland, barely a cloud in the sky. Wales, Western England, seeing plenty of strong sunshine right the way through the morning with those temperatures increasing rapidly. But along that east coast, we do have that low cloud in places. That's going to limit the temperature rise a bit more during the morning. It will tend to become more restricted to the far east coast around the beaches by the afternoon. But here it's going to be cooler because of this breeze from the North Sea. So not as hot across East Anglia and the southeast compared with the last few heat waves, but inland and widely across central and western England, Wales, parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, temperatures reaching or exceeding 30 Celsius. Top temperature 34 degrees somewhere in the West Midlands. Now, Sunday is also going to be a hot day, but a couple of differences. A bit more cloud in the sky, chance of an odd shower later, temperatures a couple of degrees down on Saturdays. Then a real change takes place into the start of next week, showery and much cooler.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time for Right versus Left with Emma Wolfe and my old mucker, Stephen Palm. This is going to be a corker, by the way. So, today's topic, Stephen, are we giving our country away to different cultures?
I don't think we're giving it away, but the reality is, Lee, there are certain parts of this country which I don't recognise. Simple as that. We're not as bad as, as France, where you have the banlieue around Paris, where you have areas, complete no-go areas, where Sharia law exists, where the police don't go in. But we've got some bad situations. It is in nobody's interest, whatever community you're from, whatever faith group you're in, it is no interest, in your interest, to live in a ghetto, a monocultural, monoglot ghetto. It's in nobody's interest.
But you say that, Stephen, but we've been creating these ghettos.
We've not been creating.
We have.
No,
we have.
No, we haven't, Lee.
We have, Stephen, since the 1960s. Going to some of the towns in the Midlands and the North, places like Bradford, where, you know, the whole, in one particular part of the town, there's just one demographic. We've allowed that to happen through mass, uncontrolled migration. We've not integrated people properly. We've just allowed them to go where they want to go. And of course, they're going to go where their own people are.
Lee, as you keep reminding me, I'm older than you. Look,
you are older than me, yeah, considerably older.
The reason why you've got people in Lancashire and in Bradford, in South Yorkshire, is because the mills have gone, the work has gone. They were brought over here. We used to, don't forget, when Enoch Powell was Secretary of State for Health, he went to the West Indies begging people to come to this country and work in the NHS. People begging to come to work in the mills, come to work in the old heavy industries. They've gone. Of course the people are there because that's where the work was. Now, I'm hoping and I'm praying that this will actually dilute.
Stephen, when did the mills go?
Yeah, mostly in the 50s and early 60s.
So, I mean, so for the last 30, 40, 50 years then, we've been allowing it to happen.
Yeah. Well, no, we can't actually do what they do in Sweden, which is actually bulldoze the area of the ghettos. We can't go to people and say, oi, we're going to move you from Bradford to Basingstoke. We can't do that. You might wish you could, but
Why
you
can't
can't.
you do it, Stephen?
Yeah, because you flipping can't.
Why?
Yeah, I mean, think about it, think it through. We're going to go to
Should we get rid of some of these ghettos, these horrible estates, and build some decent housing for people?
But I don't disagree with
so
you.
So we can do it, Emma?
Well, you say it's been going on for decades, and you're absolutely right, Lee, but it's really been accelerating over the past past few years with, you know, mass uncontrolled immigration. You ask anyone in any town or city across the UK and they will tell you the same story. The local cafes are closing down, the local pubs are closing down, the shops are boarded up, all the things that used to be part of our communities. But also it's deeper than that. Look at the things that we're really proud of in Britain, our education system, our healthcare system, but our history and our heritage. Even the seaside towns, look at Blackpool now, look at Aberystwyth, look at Skeg, all these fantastic places, same old story, boarded up shops, asylum hotels, absolutely nothing to celebrate anymore. I wrote recently a piece about London and how we've got so much that Sadiq Khan should be selling abroad and celebrating and getting... London used to be the #1 tourist destination, used to be the place that people wanted to come to. Now they come here, London is a cesspit of crime, mobile phone theft and violence and stabbings. I don't know what's happened to this country, seriously.
Well, can I just say one thing? Let's have one tiny little shard of light on this one. I have to say, I've never been so proud of this country as I was this week. Earlier on this week, when we actually did the state visit to Macron. Not necessarily because of Macron, but the
you know what? I'm ashamed of that.
Did you not see the household cavalry? Did you not see the state landau?
£500,000
we did
wasted to welcome the French president.
Look, you must admit we did it well.
Look, we do the things like things like that very well. We know we do, but
well, that is okay.
But that's not the point, Stephen. What we're talking about our history, our heritage, and our culture being eroded, almost ashamed of it, ashamed to talk about our history.
Well, not in my house.
We're seeing kids' minds in schools, in colleges, in universities poisoned against our history, our heritage.
Absolutely poisoned.
Absolutely
the woke
poisoned.
culture running rampant through our schools. I have a 4-year-old at school, and honestly, it's frightening.
But then you get all the politicians on the left, Emma, Stephen, keep saying that we're a bigoted, racist, unwelcoming country. We hear it all the time. Some of your old muckers.
Well, I seem to remember Keir Starmer saying 3 weeks ago that, it's an island of strangers.
Well,
and then he said he didn't mean it and he shouldn't have said it.
Well,
we celebrate Eid Mubarak, we celebrate Diwali, and yet when you want to celebrate Easter or Christmas, or when you want to celebrate Remembrance Sunday, when you want to talk about the soldiers who fought, the older generations who fought and died for our country, do you know what the schools say? I know we don't do Armistice Day. We don't do Remembrance Sunday.
I'm sorry.
So where's the pride? Where's the pride for our British children growing up?
Well, we're talking about pride. I had listen.
Oh God! No. Rainbow crossing.
You just opened the door for him.
I have got a confession to make. I come out of Green Park Station, which half of it was cordoned off, and I got stuck in the Pride March.
Oh my God! That's scary.
They must have loved that.
Well, cap on, glasses on, head down, because I know what an inclusive bunch. But what really got my goat, and we'll come to this later, is the armed forces being there, jumping up and down, flapping about like big whatever. Absolutely disgraceful.
The police
Stephen.
love a rainbow crossing. They absolutely love it.
What's all that about?
I'm not happy.
I know that you used to be in the Navy, but would you have done this back in the day?
Of course not. It was, don't ask, don't tell in my day. But look, what I can't stand is police officers, with these things around their necks. It's just wrong, mate. It looks bad.
So many gay colleagues, gay friends who say, no, this pride nonsense has gone too far.
The other thing
is embarrassing. You don't need to flaunt your semi-naked body through the centre of town. You don't need to. In order to live your life, have your own choices about how you live, who you love, who you sleep with. We don't care. I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Somebody said to me the other day, it started off as a gay pride, now it's gay arrogance. It's no longer a day, it's no longer a weekend.
July is Disability Pride Month.
Lee, I think, can we all agree, if things were pretty terrible 30, 40 years ago. I remember in the Navy, people were actually thrown out of the Navy for being gay, and they're actually cashiered, discharged ashore, we used to call it. It was a shocking thing to do. People were being penalised for their sexuality.
But
We've moved on from that. But I think, have we now reached the stage where it is now acceptable? Can we now move on and stop having to say we do have to have a whole month of parades with Lee Anderson marching up and down Piccadilly?
But it's not just a whole month. It's rainbow crossings all over towns. It's every
and it was,
public
by the way,
building needs to have a rainbow flag.
Guys, you know what part of the show it is now, don't you? Time for the yes or no quiz.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but before we start, Stephen, have you got one of these?
I'm not
wrong answer. Emma, have you got one of these?
No.
Okay, so that is 1 to Emma. Let me just write this down, and 0 to... Very poor start, Stephen. Question number 2. Is Starmer Macron's puppet?
Yes.
No.
That's 2-1. And Stephen, are we as a country losing our identity?
No.
I can't believe that answer. Yes or no?
Yes.
Should the armed forces, Emma, be prancing about on pride marches?
No.
Stephen?
No.
Ooh, agreement. Fifth and final question. Should our National Health Service charge for translation services?
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes.
Wow. Can't believe that one from the old socialist here. Stephen, you slipped up again. Now, you've been on this show, what, I think 20-odd times now. Your record in the yes or no quiz...
Emphasis on the odd.
Yeah, odd, very odd, is the worst of any guest that comes on this show. But let's come back on one. Are our police losing control of our streets?
I don't know if you've seen what's happening in the Metropolitan Police this week. They're actually talking about 36 crime spots across London. And
Is that all?
Well, hang on a second. I had a look at those. It's every single town centre in the City of London. Yeah. They say that they're actually going to have to put extra resources. Now, there's something fundamentally, seriously wrong there. Now, we've talked about this before, about the broken windows here. If you break a window in a house, then all the other windows get broken. Yeah. If people have got... You know, we talked about Rolex rippers earlier on, but we talked about things like, at the present time, shoplifting, where it seems to be unpunished. And I have to say, I'm not a great fan of Robert Jenrick, but when you saw people leaping over the barriers and dodging on the tubes, it's the low-level crime that accelerates the process of people losing confidence. Once the police have lost the confidence of the people, then the people do not give their information to the police. We have to work with the police are basically...
Come on, Emma.
Exactly.
Come on,
the crime statistics are completely an underestimate because no one reports sort of petty crime anymore. Mobile phone is stolen, I think, every 6 seconds in the centre of London. Absolutely. The police need to spend more time out on the streets. It's this sense of lawlessness, this sense you can do what you want and get away with it. Stabbings on buses, that kind of sense. Police, instead of staring at screens and wasting time on Facebook and looking into hurty Facebook posts and all of that social media nonsense, we need the police.
Guys, we're coming to the end now.
Out on the streets.
Another victory for Emma Wolf. Sorry, Stephen, another defeat for you. Interesting that we talked about the police earlier, guys, because coming up next we've got Shabnam Chowdhury, a former top detective.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Whilst the UK will experience Mediterranean-like temperatures on Saturday, it's not going to be quite as hot through the Mediterranean as it has been recently. For the Canaries and for Madeira, fairly typical conditions of the time of year. Breezy, partly cloudy, otherwise fine. But we've got this area of thunderstorms developing across northern Spain, the Pyrenees, Andorra, southern France. They could be quite lively. And for Italy, for Greece, sunny spells. Not quite as hot, but it is going to heat up into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
The 12th, a day to celebrate history, community and family here in Northern Ireland. Join me, Arlene Foster.
And me, Dougie Beattie, as we bring you live coverage of the July 12th celebrations.
Right across the United Kingdom. It's all happening here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Well, that sounds like last orders at the bar. I've got Shabnam Chowdhury with me, former top cops. Is it superintendent or detective superintendent? Is that right?
Detective superintendent, yes.
Right, OK, I've got that right. That's a real mouthful. But tell me, young lady, can I say young lady? Am I allowed to say that?
You can say what you like if I...
Why did you join the police force? What got you interested?
Well, I left school at 15, only to do a summer job. Yeah. Got a job in a menswear shop and eventually didn't go back to school at that particular point. And I had a real eye for what you call shoplifters, credit card fraudsters, probably because you get £50 reward every time you catch one.
Really?
Yeah, but before they'd even use their credit card, I knew that they were going to use a dodgy card, so I'd call down...
How? How did you know?
Instincts. Gut feeling, common sense. You know, they come in, they'd buy loads of stuff without trying it on, and I'm thinking you'd always try stuff on, you'd want measurements done, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. We used to get a lot of police officers come in, we used to give them 10% discount, and they used to say to me, my God, you'd be really good, you need to join the police. So literally it started from there. Embarked on a journey on applying for the Metropolitan Police. I was too skinny, about 7 stone, 5'7", too young, not enough life experience, 7 years, 4 attempts, and I got finally accepted into the Metropolitan Police.
So it took you 7 years to get it?
7 years.
Wow.
I was
Pretty
25.
persistent, then.
Yeah, I don't know. I started to just get a bee in my bonnet about it because the more, when I worked in the shop, I worked my way up to manager, and the more I got involved with what was going on in the criminal aspect of it, the more interested I became in it. And the police officers that used to come in, they were so supportive that I thought, this has got to be me.
So tell us about your first year in the police force then. What was you doing?
Walking the beat.
Yeah?
Yep, I was walking the beat, a frontline officer in uniform, wearing a skirt against my family's wishes.
Oh, dear.
So my parents thought I used to go to work in trousers, bought myself a pair of British Home Store trousers and leave the house with those and then jump into a skirt. Worked Bethnal Green, which probably best part of my career, really, 8 years there. Actually, this will make you laugh, I got approached in my very early days to go and work down Brick Lane Police Station because it was predominantly a Bangladeshi community. Yeah. And the feisty girl that I am, I refused to be what I considered was like a token officer for the local community because I wanted actually to blend in with everybody. And so they let that one go.
So there must have come a stage in your career, Shabnam, that you thought, well, this is the life for me. I'm going to spend 25, 30 years doing this. When was that?
You know, it was probably within... No, I didn't really. I just thought, I'm doing this job, I'm loving it, I'm loving catching the bad guys. Look, I had a cultural competence about me as well. I was a Muslim officer, I had languages, I understood communities, and so that... catching the bad guys, catching the drug dealers, but also engaging with community, catching burglars and going around reporting crime that really meant something to someone, meant a lot to me. So
that was it, really.
So you would have been around then, because this week's is the 20th, sadly, the 20th anniversary of 7/7, the bomb attacks in London. So you'd have probably been a police officer in London on that day.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was a detective inspector at the time.
Yeah.
So my role then wasn't frontline, as in on the streets, but it was operational detective. I remember the day very, very well. I was in Farnham actually on some sort of strategic course, and goodness me, that train is a train that I would take into work.
Wow.
So that was lucky, but everybody on that course that was within the Met Police at that time literally picked up their bags and they come back to London to get involved with whatever was going on in terms of what we could do to support policing.
It's a very sad day, isn't it? You know, it's we see these situations like the terror attacks. We've seen them on Westminster Bridge. We've seen them on London Bridge as well. And we always seem to be in this country waiting for one, don't we? We sort of think one's going to come. We don't know when it's going to be, but we always seem to be waiting for these horrible terrorist attacks.
I think sadly that's the general consensus of many of the members of public, because of what you've seen, because of what you saw with Southport, you know, past history with the 7/7. 20 years ago seems a long time ago, but to many of us it doesn't feel like that. I was actually shocked it was 20 years. But that is a general fear, I think, of many members of the public.
And of course, some of these, when we have these terrorist incidents, we always listen to the victims and the families of the victims, which have been watching one at the moment on Netflix about the survivors of the 7/7. Some of the horrific and graphic things they say, you can't imagine it. But also it has an effect on the officers as well, the emergency services, the people that go in and get these people out and have to make these, you know, split-second decisions.
You can never take away from what's happened with those victims, but when you've got officers, and I include myself in that, not necessarily on the terrorist side of it, but day in, day out, being confronted with some of the most horrific issues and sites, I cannot comprehend what those police officers experience and how that long-lasting trauma has probably stayed with them throughout their policing journeys. Because remember, some officers, that might have been their very first experience as young serving officers, or those experienced officers, and really, really difficult time for policing, but also for the public and those families and the victims. They're not just going out there to do their job, because whilst that's going on and they're dealing with what's in their head and what they're seeing, they've really got to keep their wits about them. They've got to be focused on the job in hand, which is to protect and to serve the public and to make sure that there aren't any other further injuries and stuff.
As you say, the job's there to protect and serve, which I agree with. I sometimes think that our police don't get enough protection from people like us in Westminster, in Parliament, some of their bosses as well. I think they've got a thankless task. It's very, very difficult to be a police officer these days.
Without a doubt, but I can tell you now, policing doesn't get the support it needs from the government, from politicians. They get very, very quickly criticised without having the facts themselves. Social media has changed massively, so absolutely everything is there to be scrutinised without all the details and all the information that they see. And I'm afraid, I hate to say it, but it's true, they don't get anywhere near enough support from senior leaders within policing. They don't have the guts or the balls to actually say, do you know what, I'm standing by your side because I agree with what you did and I'm going to support you.
That's shocking. Anyway, I want to use my policing skills now, Shabnan, to police your pint pulling skills. You've got a pint pot there, that's a coloured one, and you've got the old neck oil here. And what you have to do, in 30 seconds, you've got to pull the perfect pint, and then what we'll do at the end, we'll plonk it on the bar and I'll give you a mark out of 10, so go for it.
Goodness me.
Yeah, goodness me.
Okay, ready?
Yeah, go. So any aspiring cops out there, young people thinking about a career in the police force, what would you say to them?
I would say 100% if that's a journey that you want to embark on, do it. I've got 3 nephews in the police.
Keep going, that's it. And...
Is that my 30 seconds up?
No, go on. You've got another 10 seconds. That's it. Now plonk it on the bar. I think, actually, if you was working in this pub, you'd probably get arrested. For pulling that pint.
I agree. I think
under
I should
the trade descriptions, right? It's a shocker, Shabnan, isn't it? That is.
I'm a money saver, so if I can save some money, I will.
So 30 years in the police.
30 years.
What are you doing now?
Well, I've travelled a lot in the last 5 years. I work as a consultant. I worked during COVID in the COVID hotels as an operational head for that, and I do a lot of the media pundit stuff, not for the Metropolitan Police, but as a as an independent. But I'm enjoying life. Play a lot of tennis. Have had 2 knee surgeries in between.
Listen, that's been great. Thank you.
Thank you, an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for coming. That's Shabnam, and she's been an absolutely fantastic guest, but I am not drinking that beer. I want to give you 5 out of 10.
I'll take that.
Thanks for joining me on Lee Anderson's Real World. Been another great show with some great guests, but coming up next, we've got Friday Night with Matt Goodwin.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to be a very warm night out there. Clear skies for most, but temperatures in many places not dropping below the high teens or even low 20s. And with high pressure in charge, we're going to see plenty of sunshine as we start the weekend and even hotter weather to come. Now, we do have an area of low cloud and mist around the North Sea. That's going to just creep inland in some parts of eastern Scotland and eastern England overnight. Otherwise, it's clear skies and temperatures not falling far. 17, 18 Celsius typically, but in some spots, particularly, say, western Scotland, temperatures won't fall below 20 Celsius. So an uncomfortable night for sleeping. And a misty start to the day for eastern parts of Scotland with some low cloud around first thing. But elsewhere across Scotland, it's sunshine from the word go, temperatures rising quickly through the morning. Likewise for Northern Ireland, barely a cloud in the sky. Wales, Western England, seeing plenty of strong sunshine right the way through the morning with those temperatures increasing rapidly. But along that east coast, we do have that low cloud in places. That's going to limit the temperature rise a bit more during the morning. It will tend to become more restricted to the far east coast around the beaches by the afternoon. But here it's going